What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mondays Down South. As you can tell, we're doing things a little different today. If it's not obvious by the Empire State Building in the background, the guys are in New York for the Super Bowl. So we got a live edition for you. We're going to come at you with, obviously a Super Bowl preview. Give us our predictions, do some betting, and just kind of, yeah.
The only thing I gotta say is we should have introed this by saying, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mondays Up North, because none of us are in the South this week, but I think that's fine. Sorry for the interesting setup. We don't know how the audio is going to be, but at the same time, we're just excited to give you guys a little bit of a view. And honestly, we did this last year, and I think it was amazing, and we weren't able to give you a live episode, so this is going to be really fun because we got all the bets locked in. We got quite the debate, I'm sure, coming up with us maybe being a little bit of a disagreement here with Zebo and Evan on who's going to win. So it should be good. Zach, what do you got, man?
I'm just worried the scrollers are going to hit up behind us and the whole back screen that we have is going to fling up in the air. But this is not CGI. This is not green screen. We can assure you we are actually in New York, but really, really looking forward to this. We've now done this 2 years in a row. So maybe the third time next year, but really looking forward to it. And obviously getting straight into the meat of this Super Bowl. What is it? 60?
I was just gonna say I have no idea what I was gonna intro with the number, and I
I don't
totally have
know
no
what
idea.
I was
what
about to
it
do
is.
that too. And I was like, I'm drawing blanks.
that's not-
here,
It's like
guys.
50 or
That's
something.
not what we're focused on anywhere, right? It don't matter. What matters is it's the Super Bowl week. It don't matter what the number is. It's in Arizona, and we got Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs facing his old team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's going to be a blast. What a matchup. We have the two quarterbacks that were in competition for MVP basically all season until Hurts got hurt. And then Mahomes stole it and just won it this year. I'm not going to say stole it. I think he deserved it. But still, Mahomes won it. So this is going to be epic. I want to start. Zach, I'll tee it up to you. What do you think of the matchup? What do you think is going to happen? Just based off what happened in the championship games, let's just get it rolling.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a really exciting matchup. I wasn't as excited about the matchup initially. Selfishly, I wanted the Bengals and the Eagles just to see the wide receivers for Cincinnati, especially T. Higgins going up a contract year against those DBs. But hey, look, the Chiefs proved that they were the better team 2 weeks ago, and they're here right now. And right off the bat, if you look at coaching already favors Kansas City. We got Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator. Andy Reid's calling the plays, and you got Eric Bieniemy as an OC with the best quarterback in the league right now, obviously, undisputed. That's going to make it a huge challenge for Philadelphia, especially considering the fact that they have a lot of new coaches, new defensive coordinators, new OCs, and obviously their head coach had fallen under Andy Reid in terms of the staff level before he was let go when Andy Reid moved on from Philly to Kansas City. So what do I think of the game? I think Philly is the more talented roster. Offensively and defensively. I think they can run the ball a lot better as well. So you're going to obviously see them right off the jump try to facilitate that run game using guys like Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, that offensive line unit to really get an early push, because that's going to dictate how this game goes. Both of these teams start fast. They're going to want to score as quickly as possible. And I think Philly needs, if they're going to experience any type of success, guys, it's going to have to be through the run game. Not necessarily Kansas City. Mahomes can kind of bail them out in the passing game. But Ev, I'll kick it over to you. What do you think about the game, man?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on them needing the run game, because I also think they can exploit them in the secondary with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith against probably the youngest secondary in the NFL with all those rookies back there. But I think this game is tough. It's like I personally see at almost every matchup on the field, I think the Eagles have the advantage. So the question is, how much magic does Patrick Mahomes in him? Because that's the one area, obviously, with Mahomes, you have a chance every game. The ankle should be better. I think Hurts' shoulder should be fine. Coaching-wise, two great coaches, but you'd think in a game like this, Andy Reid has the advantage in Spagnuolo. So I think the question is, how much magic do Andy Reid and Mahomes have? Because I honestly don't see a single matchup on the field where I don't think the Eagles are in a better spot. Chris Jones may be the one exception who can wreck the game up the middle, but I really see the matchups as lopsided, but Mahomes can equal any playing field, regardless of how it stacks up in the other positions. But
I can tell you one matchup that's going to be that the Chiefs are definitely going to win. Travis Kelsey running at the tight end spot against whoever they got in that secondary. It doesn't matter because Travis Kelsey against any linebacker, any safety, any corner, any person in the league is a huge advantage. And I think just as much as Patrick Mahomes and obviously Reed play into this, Kelsey's going to be the factor in my opinion. And obviously you have the Kelsey versus Kelsey brother matchup and all those memes about with their mom pulling up with cookies and stuff. That's so cool. I love to see it, and I'm really excited about that. I personally think the difference here is honestly going to come down to, obviously, for me personally, I've always been quarterback trumps anything else for me when it comes down to the grand scheme of things. I do think overarchingly the Eagles are the better team, but I think industry-wise, people are treating it as if if the Eagles then are like tremendously better at every position, and that I actually disagree with, because I don't think the Chiefs got to the Super Bowl purely off the back of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's coaching. I think their defense has played very well this entire playoffs. They're young, like Evan said, but they're fast, and they don't let people just kind of walk all over them. That hasn't happened yet, and they do exactly what they need to do to keep Mahomes in the game and allow him to play. And it kind of reminds me, funny enough, like their defense kind of reminds me of your Falcons defense when you guys made the Super Bowl. The problem there was your coaching wasn't as good, but you had a decent enough like quarterback pressure, and you had young, fast guys that was able to keep the game in front of them, which is really what you need to do against the Eagles. The thing that I think is the big differentiating factor is the coaching. I think Andy Reid, no offense to Nick Sirianni, I think Andy Reid, when it comes to coaching, is on that tier one, like above, like, you know, the highest tier of coaching. And I personally believe, especially with kind of that feeling of like the way he left Philadelphia and who they kind of pulled in, I kind of just feel like Reid's going to have that chip on his shoulder. Even though he's the nicest guy ever, I think there's got to be something in him internally where he's like, I want this so badly. And I think that's my differentiator. And I think his boys are going to want to win from him. I'm just seeing how much his players, like, I don't want to get into like the psychological or philosophical aspect, but just seeing how much his players kind of like have his back. When I see that, I don't know. I just think they're going to amp it up. So that's why, for me personally, and I'll be the first one to jump out there and say it, I got the Chiefs winning this game. Even though I think the Eagles are the better team on paper, I don't think that the factor is large enough where the difference in Patrick Mahomes, who I think at this point is already a Hall of Famer. I feel like if he retired today, he's a Hall of Famer. Two-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl champion. He's been in the playoffs. He's been in the AFC Championship. I think every year he's been a starting quarterback. 5 years in a row. That's an absurd resume, and that's a guy that I'm not betting against. And I'm sticking to what I've done since the day we founded MDS. I have never once picked against a Chiefs spread the entire time that we've had MDS, and I will not this time either. Picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, that's who I picked at the beginning of the year, and that's who I'm picking now. So I'm going Chiefs.
I love it. I agree with your stance on like the Chiefs defense and comparing it to like the Super Bowl contenders, I should say, in the Atlanta Falcons 5 years ago, where it's like kind of like subsidized defense. You know your offensive side of the ball is going to put up a ton of points, right? So the offensive production is going to be there. Can the defense can they just stay afloat? Can they do their job to a certain extent to where they still perform well, but they don't have to perform extraordinarily well? We all know that the Philadelphia Eagles have offensive juggernauts up and down the field, right? I mean, you could swing them out wide on the Twins with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. You've got the line up front. You've got Miles Sanders. Give me Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, Gainwell had a fantastic game, right?
Yeah,
you have Jalen Hurts as well. I mean, you know, an MVP finalist. I mean, how do you stop that team? So the question is, like, if you're Steve Spagnuolo, you're taking that Chiefs defense, you're bringing them in a huddle, and you're saying, hey, guys, we're going to give up plays. Just get right back into the game and just do the best you can, because we know the offense is going to put up points. But if you can just have a subsidized defense where they do their job, they don't have to play outstanding, even though they played out absolutely terrific against the Cincinnati Bengals with an arguably more talented offensive roster. So, you know, I'm not sure what the stance there is specifically, but I'm going to go with the Eagles here. I think the Eagles are just too talented. I think they're going to run the football really well, which is going to set up the play action. And you know, I'm kind of curious to see if you guys have any potential X factors that you think are going to have like really, really good games. For me, I think it's super important to get A.J. Brown involved very early.
That's a good point.
Because if they don't, I don't know if Devonta Smith can carry them all the way down the field. I think Dallas Goedert is going to have a good game, but I think he's going to be blanketed by guys like Frank Clark and really fast, versatile linebackers. So if A.J. Brown doesn't get involved early, it's gonna be a tough day for Philly. But Av, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, here's where I disagree with you guys on how this game is going to go. You guys seem to have baked in like 3 or 4 touchdowns from the Chiefs, whereas their offense hasn't been that juggernaut all year. Especially, I mean, I think Pat's ankle, like, it's obviously not going to be 100%. It'll be better, but like, I almost think the other side of the ball is where I'm a little more confident in the Chiefs. Like, I think with Spags and the pressures you can dial up, like the Eagles' offense hasn't had to make plays yet in this postseason with how the last 2 games have gone. I mean, their offensive line just dominated the best defensive line in the NFL, so I think they'll continue to go with that approach. I don't think A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith has had to make a single play in the playoffs, and they've dominated each game. Obviously, interesting circumstances 2 weeks ago, but
I was just gonna say that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I see this more as another game where Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do a whole lot. They're going to pound the ball, and can the Chiefs' offense actually keep up? Because on the outside, I agree, Kelsey, I think will eat. I think in a game like this, they're just going to say, we're giving it to our best player like 20 times, 20 targets to Kelsey. But on the outside, like I think Tony's probably out. Like they got MVS and like those kind of guys. Are they going to be able to beat like C.J. Gardner-Johnson? I mean, Bradbury's been exploited a little bit lately, but I don't think they have the weapons on the outside to necessarily do that. So I actually see a slightly lower scoring game. I see the Eagles going out ahead early. I don't say dominating the line of scrimmage, but almost dominating the line of scrimmage. And then I think the Chiefs will hang around. They'll hang around. I think for the Chiefs, you're just hoping to give Pat a chance at the end of the game. And I think this game will come down to, all right, which quarterback has that chance at the end of the game? Like, whose shoulders is it on, right? Because if it's Hurts, like I said, he hasn't had to make any big plays in this playoffs yet. And then Spags with the pressures, I think could frustrate him. So my prediction with all that said, I think, again, the Eagles jump out early. It's a lower scoring game. It'll get into the 20s, though. And then I think Mahomes has a chance to win it late. But I think it's like an nearly impossible, like not even Pat can pull it off. Like he's got like 30 seconds to go the length of the field and like score a touchdown or something. So I've got the Eagles winning by like a touchdown. I don't think it's ever like too much in doubt with the Eagles.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think the Chiefs will keep it close and have a chance. I could also honestly see a similar game though to that Bucs Super Bowl with the Chiefs from 2 weeks ago, where the Hassan Reddick and the Eagles defensive line just
they're gonna eat.
Eats the Chiefs for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Pat's angle starts bothering him, and it just starts to look a little ugly. I don't expect that to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked.
No, I don't think that'd be shocking. But I will say this. I think, obviously, you made a great point about Patrick's ankle, right? Like, they're saying he's feeling better, but, like, we'll be able to tell when he's on that field, especially against that dominant Eagles defense. At every front, that defense is great. I'm not taking that away from him. The flip side of that is, I don't know if I agree so much that I agree that the Chiefs haven't scored a ton of points on offense, but the flip side to that is I think because of the way they play defense, they haven't had to. I think if they need to score, they will. That's personally how I feel, but that's just because of my trust in Mahomes and Kelsey. And I do agree that their receiving weapons aren't like incredible, but Pacheco's playing great though in the passing game from the running back position. Yeah, he can cause some havoc by just running routes, getting him the ball. Again, Pat is so good at improvising, right? Like no matter how great you defend on defense, like all it needs, if your wide receiver gets open for 2 seconds, it doesn't matter if the guy's 50 yards down the field. It takes Mahomes 1 second to get him that football, and that's really where I think the difference can be. The other side to that is, I think you said it perfectly. Their pass rush is so creative. Like even if talent-wise you don't think they're the best defense, like their ability to get pressure, and that's something Hurts hasn't had on him basically the entire playoffs. And I'm not going to take this away from the Eagles because this is the cards they were dealt. But for back-to-back weeks, first of all, I picked the Giants. I was completely wrong in picking the Giants, but I won't dispute that. They played great week 1. Flip side of that is it's like when you look back at it, do you consider they dominated them? So it's a great win in the sense that they dominated. Flip side of that is it's not like they beat some juggernaut round 1, and they didn't have to. They beat the team they were supposed to by a good margin. But then they played that 49ers defense or 49ers team where it was just like you had Josh Johnson playing for like half a quarter because, Purdy goes down, and then he destroys his whatever he hurts, and then they essentially have a guy throwing with his left arm the entire game. So what I'm saying is the Eagles have played nobody like the Chiefs yet either. So although they have been dominant, I don't want to just assume that they can't be beaten because of that.
And here's kind of a terrifying thing too, if you're going to bet for Philly, which it sounds like Evan and I are going to do, is Philadelphia's struggled offensively in their last couple games. Like when they were playing against, they put up 31 points against the 49ers, but that was a 7-7 game going almost into halftime when the San Francisco 49ers were running up and down like the sidelines trying to figure out, it's pandemonium everywhere. They don't have a quarterback. Johnson's going out. Christian McCaffrey throws a deep ball down the middle of the field that goes absolutely nowhere. Like, it was a 7-7 ball game for a while. And also keep in mind, too, when they had that opening drive where they scored, that was also the play where Devonta Smith bailed them out like a long 3rd and 13 for a ball that he didn't even technically catch. So the reason I bring this up is obviously I know Philadelphia's offense has been incredible this entire season. But it does go to show you the danger is if they don't start early. The Chiefs came out early right after they got in Arrowhead 2 weeks ago against Cincinnati, and they were up, for the majority of the game. They were able to hold that lead for the most part until it was like a 20-20 game at one point. But, the Eagles need to understand that they're used to playing ahead, but Kansas City is going to come straight at them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they start throwing long balls down the field for MVS on that first drive if you're Kansas City.
I'm really glad you said that because you asked me and Evan what our X factors are. I'm not going to pick a specific player, but I'm going to pick a specific point of emphasis. In order for the Chiefs to win, I think the X factor is you need to be able to, on the Chiefs side, stop the Eagles' run game. If you can put pressure on them to just throw the ball the entire game, and I'm not saying Hurts isn't a capable passer, they have the weapons, but I'm just saying if you take the run away or you make it really hard for them to run the ball, that's when the Eagles have faltered this year, right? Like, whether it's your game with the Commanders, we're talking about two teams, the Commanders who didn't make the playoffs, and even my Colts who lost the game. The Eagles, those are probably the two games where, like, one they lost or two it came down to literally the last possession for them to win. It was literally because they couldn't run the ball. And you put the pressure on them to throw the football. And that's what the Chiefs need to do. Because their secondary is fast enough. You make Hurts make a mistake or two, you're in a good spot. But you need to stop the run. And if you can't, if you are correct and the Eagles run all over the Chiefs and they can't do anything about that, the Chiefs will lose the game. I 100% agree with that because there's nothing Mahomes is going to be able to do. But I believe with the speed that they have on defense and with them being able to put the pressure on the quarterback and the running back the way that they have in their prior games, I think the defense will play a lot better than people are going to give them credit for. That's how I personally feel. But then again, I feel bad because I picked against the Eagles a lot, and it's not because I don't trust the Eagles. It's just because I think sometimes they get maybe a little bit too much credit. So that's my personal opinion.
Well, and say what you want about them injuring the quarterbacks, but they dominated the line of scrimmage in that game. Like, I don't care who's playing quarterback. If it's Purdy, Josh Johnson fully healthy, like, that's a 2-touchdown win for them. They were dominating the best defense in the
I disagree. I disagree personally.
And in the first, the reason Purdy got hurt was because they strip sacked him and got the ball back. And the other counter to one of your points is that the Chiefs did come out firing against Cincinnati, but that game they had every chip on their shoulder, every reason to come out firing with a crazy home crowd, with them calling it Burrowhead. This is neutral site. The playing field is neutral here. They're not going to have that same home crowd behind them just come out firing like that. So I disagree with that being a factor.
That is a good point.
That's interesting, though, because if you ask me which team I trust more on the road, or at least who I trust more on the road, I trust Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid more on the road, personally.
Well, neither of these teams are on the road.
Well, when I say road, I mean, like, not at home, right? Like, playing not in a home environment. When I look at it that way, I'm like, who do I trust more? Of course I trust Mahomes more. He's done it more.
Well,
that's not my point.
I would argue if they didn't have that hot start 2 weeks ago, though, they lose that game. Because if that game goes into overtime, who do you guys think that wins that game based on how it was going?
Well,
the whole second half, they had flipped that game, and they were going to win that game.
Well, the flip side of that is I don't know that I agree with you that the Eagles would have won by 2 scores against the 49ers if they still had their starting quarterback. They're already playing Purdy, I agree. Maybe they would have beaten Purdy. Sure, I don't dispute that. But I'm also saying Zach is not incorrect in saying in the first half, even if they were, getting pressure, it was a close game. And that 49ers defense, if they can keep it close, they turn it up in the second half. They don't dial it down.
Well, and Philly, the reason they got the 31 in the second half was because the horrific turnovers that Johnson was committing, on his own 30-yard line, to where Philly just was already in field position.
It's not even that Shanahan. It's not even
that.
Was
that no?
That was McCaffrey.
He got one drive. No, the other thing is Shanahan literally.
Purdy came out just
literally, Shanahan said, you could see in the game. Literally, Shanahan said, "We are not going to be able to throw the football. So I don't care if we're down 30 points. I'm running every single down." What? Of course your defense is going to dominate. They're not throwing the football. Nobody can throw the football even if you want to. Of course, and the problem is if you put someone's defense on the field the entire game, they're going to get exhausted. It doesn't matter how great your defense is. The 49ers defense was on the field for literally the entire second half because they had a 3-and-out every single time the offense came on the field. So I don't think that's a fair comparison to what the Chiefs are capable of, assuming Mahomes doesn't get hurt. assuming his ankle's all right. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, obviously we're all on different pages, and I don't fault you guys for picking the Eagles either because clearly they're the better overall team. I don't dispute that. I pick, in my sense, I think the gap is close enough where I think the quarterback play and the coaching elevates the Chiefs. That's where I
feel like we need to put like a Mondays Down South pull up. We'll put a pull up tomorrow on our page.
I like that.
Because I'm curious to be like, okay, what's more valuable in these crucial moments? The Eagles' more talented roster up and down the board on both offense and defense, or the coaching and the acumen, the experience of being in a Super Bowl previously with the Chiefs. And that's not just their coaches, that's their players. Like, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have obviously been to a Super Bowl multiple times before. So it's like we'll almost have to put a poll up, like what's more valuable in these instances, a really talented roster or just a really experienced coaching and playing staff of being in these stages? Because I don't think Jalen Hurts would get stage fright because his mentality is otherworldly. But I could see players commit crucial defensive player interferences like Garner Johnson or something like that.
See, they have the vets on defense, though the Chiefs don't.
No, yeah,
CJ's a vet.
true.
Darius Slay,
Fletcher
vet.
Cox.
Bradbury isn't the best, but he's a vet.
But he is a vet too, yeah.
And
that's a good
the
point.
Chiefs have 5 rookies on defense, 6.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they have the most rookies on the starting defense in I think NFL history.
And again, I think that's
a lot
what
of
makes
good
them
players, but
that's what makes them good, in my opinion, though, in these kinds of matchups, right? Because the one thing that I think they're good at is not getting beat over the top. They're very good with their speed of keeping people in front of them, which I think is going to be very important in this matchup. But again, it's going to be really. That's the thing. I feel like last year we didn't have this episode prior to the fact, but I think all three of us, even though we felt obviously the Bengals had a shot, I think all three of us were on the same page with the Rams. It was way easier. We picked the Rams, no questions asked. We're like, sure, the Bengals could win, but we all felt good about going with the veteran team, with McVay coaching, with their weapons, with everything like that. This is way harder to pick because I think we all know Mahomes is, the best player in the NFL. I think it's hard to dispute that. But we all also realize the Eagles are the better overall team in the sense of talent. So it's just kind of what do you favor in these matchups?
Like I'm going to challenge you, Sai. Like, how do you think? And this is going to sound like This is going to sound like obviously Mahomes. Like they're here for a reason. They're 14-3. But my question to you is, how do you think Kansas City is going to move the football on that Philadelphia defense?
I think they're going to get very creative with their passing patterns. I think they're not going to, even though their run game won't be amazing by any stretch of the imagination for the Eagles defensive line, I don't think they're going to be afraid to run the ball a little bit to at least keep the Eagles a little bit on their toes. And I think Kelce is going to be a massive factor. Mm-hmm. And the other part of it is, I obviously don't think they have the offensive weapons at receiver that the Eagles do. But regardless, they've used them right all year. They weren't a 1 seed in this conference for no reason. And let's be clear here: the AFC was the better conference, in my opinion, at least. Especially given all the injuries and random flux in the NFC, and the Chiefs handedly won the AFC, and a big part of that was their offense.
But to Evan's point, about the pressure, the Hassan Reddicks who are going to be coming off the edge, if Philly's going to play by far the most man-to-man coverage that Kansas City's probably seen all season, frankly. So what that means to me is that you're going to rush a lot more guys because you have so much confidence in your corners on the outside that you're like, okay, I'm not going to get beat deep most likely. I might I might lose a play like a 30-yarder to MVS or something like that. But for the most part, if they trust their corners who are very sound, then they're going to bring pressure. And that's where Hassan Reddick comes in. That's where Brandon Graham comes in. That's where Fletcher Cox comes in. I'm curious, Ev, if you have any thoughts on that. But I just think Kansas City's going to have a hard time moving the football team.
Please send all the pressure you can to Patrick Mahomes and let him have one-on-one matchups all day. Please let the MVP and the future GOAT just have his way with your defense. I would love that, please. The way you beat him is not to send the pressure all the time because he will beat you. All it takes is one receiver breaking. If Kadarius Toney gets open 50 yards down the field, Mahomes is not going to miss him. I don't care if he's on half a leg. That's what if I was the Chiefs, I'd be like, I hope you guys get cocky and I hope you blitz like blitz your ass off against Mahomes. Because I'm picking Mahomes in that matchup. That's my personal opinion. Go ahead.
Mahomes won't miss him, but Tony would drop it. Because he's terrible.
He would sometimes.
No.
He would sometimes.
I don't think he's actually going to play. I think he's
he's
out.
terrible.
I don't think it's for sure.
If he's
But,
out,
anyways,
it's a big
but
factor,
insert one of their other random receivers.
yeah, one random receiver. Yeah, it don't matter. Dog.
I do agree with Sai. You're not going to want to blitz him. They're going to not blitz him because they're going to be able to get pressure with their 4 or 5 down linemen. To the point Sai mentioned, but the other thing, like if you look back at past Super Bowls, it's usually not the quarterback that wins. The quarterback gets you there. It's usually the defensive line that wins. And again, it reminds me of that Tampa Bay game where everyone went in thinking the Chiefs would win, but they just never really had a chance with how the defense, line played. But I am very nervous because like all the money is on Philly, all the media is on Philly. That makes me very nervous, and if that were true, like why isn't the line moving towards Philly more? It's still at 1.5, and Vegas knows all. So I have a hard time not picking the team that I think is clearly better and should win the game. But all of that makes me unbelievably nervous and tempted to pick the Chiefs.
Yes, that's a good point. I was looking at social media earlier today, and it's like all these wahoos are on their phone telling people to go not Eagles spread but Eagles money line. It's like a 1.5. They're like, trust me, man. That 1.5 is there for a reason. Vegas knows all. And I'm like,
dude,
I'm clearly gonna go with the spread. Like, if anything, it's gonna be an alt spread to 2.5 for Philly. So for better odds.
It's because even though Philly's the better team, I don't care who you are, you could have a personal vendetta against Mahomes. Picking against Mahomes is so hard to do, bro.
I swear, this is a 1-point game, and we come back on this podcast and we lose out.
It's all right, guys. It's all right, guys. They're not going to convince me to bet on the Eagles anyway. We're going to have to figure out other lines. I'm telling you that straight up. Don't worry. If that happens, that won't be the reason we lose.
Wait, that actually might be a good segue. And so what we did before the podcast is we picked a couple of bets. They could be prop bets. They could just be bets in general that we feel really, really confident about. And we wanted to share them, to see if you guys agree or disagree in the comments when we post this in about a day or so. Ed, I'll kick it over to you. Any bets that you wanted to that you were looking at that you really like?
So I have a group of bets. We talked about it earlier. I think all the Travis Kelce overs. I think receptions. I don't even know what the number is. Take the over. Yardage. Take the over. I think it was in the 70s, which is a layup for me. And then my favorite is Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. It's about minus 114. I think Travis for sure scores at least 1, if not 2. I'd be tempted to take the first touchdown being Travis as well, just for fun. So that'll be my first. Just any Travis Kelce action, I'm taking.
I like that. That's one of the ones I would have picked too. So, but since you already picked it, I want to include that anyway. I've been harping about Mahomes this whole time, so I'm obviously going to lean the Mahomes way. His over on touchdowns right now is 1.5, and if the Chiefs are going to win this game, he needs to throw for 2 to 3 touchdowns easily, and I believe he will. So that's an easy bet for me personally as someone who believes the Chiefs will win and believes that Mahomes is going to do it. So I'm 100% going the over on 1.5 touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes.
I like that. I'll switch it back over to the Eagles here. One that I really liked. I was curious. I know you'll like this one, Ev, because this is in the rafters of FanDuel. Finding this one, but I really like the first receiver on the Eagles to achieve 25 yards receiving, AJ Brown at plus 240 odds. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where it's the Eagles have to understand that if they're going to even compete in this game, they need to get AJ Brown involved early. We're talking quick slants. They don't even need to ISO him in bunch formations. Throw him out on the as twin wide receiver, which is what he's normally accustomed to. And let him just, target him at least 4 times in the first quarter. If he takes 2 of those, and assuming he's able to do something with one of those receptions, he's going to at least have 25 yards, or he's going to get there at some point during the game. So, first Eagles receiver to achieve 25 passing yards plus 240 odds. You got to go AJ Brown.
I'm actually going to challenge you on that. You want to know why? Because as you say it, I'm thinking Spagnuolo's entire game plan, at least on the receiving front, is going to be take Brown away and try to obviously I'm not saying Goddard and Smith can't beat you, but I think he's going to say let them beat you. So I actually think Smith or Goddard will start off hotter, and then they're going to have to start paying a little bit more attention to them, and then Brown will open up a little bit more. That's my personal opinion, but it could go either way. I mean, the other thing is Brown is you're not wrong, because Brown, you could literally check up a 30-yard pass to it. It could be 5 people on him. He could just jump up and
Just
catch it
boss
over him.
it.
Yeah.
Just straight up boss
So I mean, that's a cool one though. I like that. That's a unique.
that's a fun one. Yeah.
That's a unique.
That is what they tried to do 2 weeks ago too to San Francisco. I think they were like 3 or 4 bubble screens out to AJ Brown. I don't think he got that yardage though, even,
No,
and he
he
barely
didn't.
got it through the whole game because they just shut it down on the ground. But definitely an interesting one.
Yeah.
I'll flip back to the Chiefs with a fun one I found through ESPN. Patrick Mahomes' first rush of the game over, I think, 3.5 yards.
His first rush of the
Just
game?
his first rush of the game has to be
Wait.
over 3.5.
Wait, but if a sack would be negative
Sack's
rushing
not a
yards.
rush. Sack doesn't count as a rush. So
Oh.
a lot of times they bake in like kneel downs and like that kind of stuff into those numbers. And like it's the Super Bowl. I don't care about the ankle. At one point or another, Pat's gonna have to rush the ball. And I think it's gonna for sure be a situation where he sees a ton of wide
Feels
open
like a
range.
10-yard
So
run. I'm with
that
you.
one seems
What
like a
are the odds
layup.
on that?
What's
Do
that?
you know what the odds are on that?
I think that would be like a pretty even one. Like
50-50
maybe
one?
maybe like minus
Gotcha.
120, minus 130.
I think
like
that's
that.
I think that's a great bet
That's
because
a
I
good
never
one.
see Patrick Mahomes is not one of those guys where you ever see him like if he sees a defender within 5 yards of him, he's
Yeah,
not running.
he's just throwing it,
chucking
especially
the ball
down the
away,
ankle.
or he's throwing it like 70 yards down the field and
Right.
hoping someone catches it. That's a great bet in my opinion. He's a very meticulous, and he can run the football, but he's very meticulous about when he does it. That's what he did against Bengals, even
Yeah.
with the bum ankle.
And they don't QB sneak with him.
No, they don't.
Unlike the
No.
Eagles, who will be like, all right, second and goal from the 2. Let's just run 3 straight sneaks.
They're also not going to QB sneak with Mahomes
Yeah,
when
exactly.
his ankle is
Exactly,
fucked up too.
exactly.
Excuse my language. Sorry, I should. Whatever. It's a Super Bowl.
I'm not editing that out.
It's a Super
Explicit.
Bowl. It's the
Explicit on
Super Bowl.
YouTube.
It's the Super Bowl.
Not
But
for kids.
I will say though, it's funny you set that up though because we're talking about QB sneaks, and I was gonna say I keep harping on the Chiefs, and I got to give the Eagles their due. It would honestly shock me if Jalen Hurts didn't get a rushing touchdown. Like if they're gonna score, I think the thing I bet on the most is Jalen Hurts scoring a rushing touchdown, and I do think it's decent odds. I have to double check what it is now, but I think it's still decent odds because predicting a rushing touchdown
It's
is
like minus 105. Oh,
Yeah.
specifically,
Specifically
yeah, it'd be
rushing.
like minus 105. I think. I
Yeah,
just looked.
yeah. I'd go with Hurts scoring a rushing touchdown for sure, just because I feel like the Eagles are gonna get to the goal line and score, and it's like Evan said, they'll run 3 or 4 straight sneaks, and I think Hurts will get one. So I'll give them their due. I think Hurts will score a rushing touchdown.
All right, so for this next one here, we're going heads, tails. So I've been doing a little bit of research on this one, and there have been heads has been played 7 out of the last 11, I believe. Someone's gonna have to fact check me on this, but I did Google search this before I was on the plane earlier today, and that means that we are technically due at tails. So I don't mean guys, whoever's listening to this, don't liquidate your 401ks and throw this on tails, please. We are not giving any betting advice whatsoever, but I remember betting heads last year. The heads was before that in the 2020 Super Bowl, and I won both times. I'm not going heads this year, guys. Follow your boy. Go tails with me, and you guys won't. Hey, tails never fails, right?
I'm going heads. I don't believe in the statistics of prior years determining this year.
Because
This year-
because it.
no,
Yeah,
I know.
The statisticians.
I know statistically speaking.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're exactly. The statisticians
Yeah.
watching this are pulling their hair out because it's 50-50 every time, no matter
That's
what the
what
data
I'm
says.
saying. Yeah.
Although I
statistically
do
nothing changes.
tend to choose heads or tails this way, but I do also recognize it's arbitrary.
Statistically
And-
speaking, ain't no statistics playing a part.
It's literally 50-50
but
every time.
This is why we love Zevo, because my
All right.
man will do extensive research about something.
Hey, I did
that
the same
puts
thing.
out.
Well, I'll do
I love
extensive
it.
research and be like, someone please fact check me. All right, so I'll give you another one though. I'll give you a good
I
one
like
here.
it. That's a good one. That is a good one. Keep going.
All right, for real. I like the Kenneth Gainwell over 4.5 rushes. Now we were off on the Sony Michel rushes last year, and Sai
could
saved
not
us
do it,
about
bro.
$1,000 on that one. So I'm not even gonna bring that one up.
We'll give him the full context. Give him
All
what
right.
the $1,000 situation was.
All right, the quick context was we had a $1,000 free bet last year,
Yep.
right around this time,
Mhm.
and there was some type of cap in terms of the upside, right, or the,
Mhm.
the plus. It was a plus 100 or more bet, but up to like plus.
The
200.
the other side. It had to be
Yeah.
like
Gotcha. So, anyways, Sony Michel's rushes was maybe 2.5, 3, or
3.5, I think it was.
3.5 rushes all game. He had maybe one rush that he maybe fumbled the football or he got like -2 yards, and he was immediately benched by McVay. Luckily, Sai was able to talk Evan and I out of making such an atrocious bet with $1,000 of free money. and we ended up putting it into Rams winning, Cooper Cup
Cooper
touchdown.
Kupp,
Right?
yeah.
So we ended up winning that one, but it's because of this guy right here.
Well, no, okay.
I don't know if we were ever actually.
Here's,
gonna-
no, Zach was 100% on board.
I was
but,
in.
But let's make one thing clear. The point was, though, that we had to create a parlay where it was, like, efficient, right? Like, obviously, parlays don't always hit, but we wanted to create an efficient one. And I said to Zach and F, and I was like, regardless of whether Sony Michel does it or not, the first and only time we probably make a $1,000 bet for a Super Bowl will not be on a backup running back running 4 times. I was like, that's not what we're putting our money on. And I'm glad we didn't, because regardless of whether we won or lost, at least if Cooper Kupp didn't score a touchdown, we wouldn't be like, wow, how dumb were we to bet on a guy that scored 17 touchdowns this season to score another one versus betting on Sony Michel. Like, I think I would have really hated myself.
What about Gainwell, though? Gainwell's 4.5.
With that said, you reminded me, I do
Not
love
about him.
Gainwell
Not
props.
about him.
I think I like if it's 4.5 rushes, he's getting that for sure, though. Because this is much different where, Sai, you were right last year. Like, McVay wants a single guy he can give the ball to.
Yeah.
The Eagles are the opposite.
They're
They
the
want,
opposite.
especially with Miles Sanders, who's not really, like, true lead back guy. So even Boston Scott's going to get the ball. Like, that's just how they run it. I don't care if it's the Super Bowl. They're going to do what they've done all year. Gainwell will get a lot of work. I like the yardage and the carries on him. I think that's a good one, Zach.
My only fear with it would be that if Kansas City does a really good job up front of stopping the run, then they might not vary it as much in the sense of rushing, and they might start throwing to the running backs a little bit more. That's the only place where I have fear, but I still like the over. I would prefer that. I think that's a good bet, especially with recent trends. I think, if anything, the odds haven't caught up to Gainwell yet, just given how involved he's been the last couple of weeks. And I think in the Super Bowl, you got to throw out all your aces, so I'm with you. I think that's a good one. This isn't like last year. This isn't a clear RB1. I mean, clear Sanders is, but they like varying. And also, you have Hurts running, too. They're going to run a lot. That's pretty much a given. So I'm with that.
Flipping to my third, it's my turn for some, it's not arbitrary analysis, actually, but my fun prop. Opening kickoff is a touchback. Usually you think it's always a touchback with how good these kickers are, but per Pat McAfee, because the Super Bowl, they use a special
Love
ball,
my Pat McAfee, yeah.
obviously for the opening kickoff, because it's going to go to the Hall of Fame and all that jazz. So it's always like an absolute rock, because it's a brand new ball, so it's like impossible to kick. So for that reason, the opening kickoff of the Super Bowl, usually not a touchback, plus 130.
Not a touchback plus 130.
Yes,
That's a unique
and
one.
obviously these guys are always fired up, so they want to take it out, right? That's like a special teamer's moment to shine. However, I get nervous about this one because I feel like every kick is always a touchback these days, especially if it's like Butker kicking. Butker has an absolute bomb.
He does,
Last year, I think I was expecting it to be McPherson. I think we might have done the opposite last year and said that it will be a touchback, but I don't remember. But that's always my fun insight to take no touchback at the plus 130 money.
Plus 130, that's pretty good.
We got
solid juice.
I think it benefits us too if the Eagles kick off too. We'll feel even better about it. I think.
Right.
Butker
the
makes
odds are
me.
gonna change. We're gonna have to take the risk
Butker.
before.
No, I'm saying we
Yeah,
should do it. We should lock that in now if we're gonna go with it. That's great research, though, and I like.
Shout
and
out
also
Pat.
shout Pat McAfee. I still can't get over my ex-Colts punter, Hall of Famer, turning into one of the greatest broadcast personalities
He's getting sued right
in
now.
TV history. Yeah.
But he's the goat.
bound
He's
to
the
happen.
goat. We're gonna partner with him one day.
Yeah, the guy is unhinged. The guy's unhinged. But anyway, yeah, I hope we partner with him. I will go with back on my Chiefs bandwagon. The Eagles are favored -1.5 in this game, right? I have an alt spread with the Chiefs favored -2.5 as my bet for this weekend because the odds will be really good on that. They keep changing, but I'm picking the Chiefs to win by a field goal in this game. At the very, I think they'll win by a field goal, so I'm going -2.5 on the Chiefs for my personal bet. I think if you believe the Chiefs will win this game, then I think that's a great bet. I don't think it's going to be a 1-point game. I think it'll be a field goal decides it personally. That's the way I feel about these kinds of offenses, and I just think that's where my money's at because I've been on the Chiefs this whole time. I'm sticking with it. So Chiefs to cover 2.5.
I like that. We'll stay. We were just mentioning his name a little bit earlier, but Harrison Butker, his over under in terms of points is 7.5. Now, just to reiterate, this is not like fantasy football where if he kicks a 40-yard field goal, this is now 4 points to get you there.
Goals, yeah.
You can kick a 70-yard field goal, it's still going to be 3 points. So, if you think that he's going to get 2 field goals and 2 extra points, then you've hit the over. I think he's going to hit the over for very different reasons. I think Kansas City's going to be able to drive the football guys, but they're going to get. I don't think they're going to have any issue going up and down the field. but they might struggle in the end zone because Kelsey is such a perennial target that I could still see him getting a touchdown. But I think that they're going to cover him so heavy that I don't think the wide receivers for Kansas City on a consistent basis are as good enough against the guys that they're going against in Philly's corner. So
that's a great point.
I think that you could see a lot of field goals. I could see 3 or 4 field goals from Buckhurst. So I'm going to hit the over on 7.5 points for him.
That's a great point because I haven't even looked at kicker props. So that's really interesting. One thing that I'll tee up is I think we all gave 3 different betting props. I think unless you guys have anything in particular that you want to discuss, if we want to wrap this episode up, I think the only and best way to do it is score right now. Everyone go through, give me your score, because not a single one of us said what we think our final score is going to be. So I think this is the time to do it. What do we think our final score is going to be, boys? Zach,
you want me to start?
Go ahead.
All right, I think this is going to be a 31-23 game Philly.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be 31-20. And then I think Kansas City in the late fourth is going to kick a field goal because it makes it a one-possession game. But I think this is going to be Philly all the way. I could see it being relatively close to start, but I think Philly is just too good, and I think they get the job done.
We got it.
You stole my margin of victory. I got 28-20, so still 8 points. Similar way it ends. The Chiefs, they stay in the game, they come back. Pat has a drive to win it at the end, but it's like unlikely. Less than a minute on the clock, full length of the field, needs a touchdown, maybe a 2-point conversion. So he tied it, sent it to overtime. Doesn't have enough.
I got 27-24 Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be a crazy high-scoring game. I said I think the Chiefs will win by a field goal, and I'm sticking to that. And I think the Eagles will score at least 3 touchdowns and get a field goal on the board. It could be, I'm going to stick to that gun. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a little bit higher scoring, but I don't think it'll be much lower scoring than that. So I personally think I'm looking at 27-24, and I think that'll be a really fun game where we'll see some really good defense in there too. This is not going to be. I don't personally feel like this is going to be a game where either team puts up some absurd number of points, so that I feel good about that. So I'm going 27-24 Chiefs.
Well, boys, we got some cocktails to drink. We're going to, Chelsea's Market to go grab some food.
Chelsea Market.
We're going to be out and about later. We got a comedy show later tonight. So
yes, sir, Comedy Cellar, let's go.
And hopefully our picks aren't comedy by the end of this, but we will be posting this here probably a day before the Super Bowl here. Really looking forward to it. We're really excited to be back in the great city of New York. Ev, thanks for hosting as always and showing us around.
Sir.
But without further ado, we will talk to you guys very soon, especially right after the Super Bowl. We want to hear your feedback, hear your comments. So feel free to let us know if you guys ever want to join the podcast. But this was from New York City, from the Big Apple, Mondays Down South.